Hola and welcome to the VED Niddle, your personal finance deal. I am doing an episode here on investing 401k, Roth IRAs, and what's the after-tax brokerage accounts. So this is really geared towards beginning investors. Really, I'm thinking about my kids, young adults, my nephews and nieces that are young adults, getting started, getting married. Some of them are already married. And some of my friends. So hopefully you guys can get something out of this and think about what you're doing with your money and help it grow so you guys can be the next generation of millionaires. So let's get started here. So where am I at? So I'm talking about traditional 401ks first. 401k is typically comes from your job. It's an investment account that allows you to put tax deferred income into an investment. So what does that mean? So money comes out of your paycheck before the taxes due, so that's an advantage. It helps to lower your tax liability. So when you comes tax time, whatever you put into your 401k, that shows a lower tax bracket that you could be in depending on how much money you're making, and it could really affect your taxes and how much you have to pay. It also grows tax sheltered, so as it grows you're not getting tax on it, but when you pull it out, when hopefully you're 59 and a half or older, that's when the taxes hit. So let me see, what else do we have here? Contributions to a traditional 401k are taken before taxes. We talked about that. And there's also, typically there's an employer match. So my job matches 3% of my 401k and then another percent after up to 4%. No, was it 3%? And then like a 0.5% for every percent I put in. I can't remember exactly how it works, but they do go higher. So it depends on how much you're putting in though. And my company also does a Roth 401k and a traditional investment account that is also company matched. So that's basically free money that I'm getting from my company. And I encourage you to look into wherever you're working to see if you can take advantage of something similar. I know some of you might be contract employees and you can do a self-directed 401k, so make sure you look into that if you don't already have something like that. So let me see what I want to start off with. Let me look at, well, why do we want to invest here? So compound interest. What is compound interest? Sounds fancy. Well, it's not that fancy. If I can find my mouse cursor. Where did I leave it? Okay, there it is. So visualizing compound interest. So this is visualcapitalist.com. I'll put a link to this webpage in the show notes. And if you're listening just on a podcast player, I'll try to do my best to explain what we're looking at. What is compound interest? It's simply put interest on interest. So when you put money in, it grows. So let's say you put $100 in, it grows at 10%. Now you have $110. So the next time that interest accrues, it's off of the $110. So at first, you see years 1 through 10, it's a slow growth. But as the time goes on, it starts multiplying, and they call this a hockey stick graph. So it exponentially grows. So basically, we just need to keep on putting in that bare minimum. And even though it seems slow and we're not really doing much, with time, it's going to grow. So basically, we're looking at decades. We're not talking about a couple of years of it growing and investing. This is a long game here. And the more you put in for the longer amount of time, the more money you'll have at the end, ideally. So it depends on how you invest. There could be safer or more risky investments, and that's going to be up to your risk tolerance and what you're comfortable with and what you can afford to put in. So here, the difference a decade makes. So just after 10 years, $2,600 can grow in 20 years to 6,700, 17,400 in 30 years, 45,000 in 40 years, 50 years 117,000, 60 years 304,000, 70 years 789,000. And that's just following $1,000 initial investment at 10%. So ideally, we keep putting money in so that way it grows even faster and higher. So this is just showing the earlier you start, you need less money. So they have two students here, and they're showing an investment at $5,000 at 25 years old is going to grow faster than a $10,000 investment at 35 years old. That 25-year-old putting in $2,500 each year, and the 35-year-old putting $5,000 each year until they're 65. The 25-year-old has more money at the end of it, even though she contributed less money overall. So just something to think about. The earlier you start, the faster your money will grow and the less you'll have to put in. That's why we'll get into it later, but they have catch-up contributions for people that are 50 or older. So you can try and invest more money, but ideally you'd be putting in that money sooner, but life happens. It's hard to put money in when you're trying to grow a family or paying for a house and all these other things. I think ideally if I was investing and I was living at home, I was told, which was good advice, to put in at least enough to get my company match because that's free money. But looking back, I probably would have tried to max it out and put in as much as I could because I had low cost of living. I was living with my parents and then eventually my brother, but I wasn't paying a whole lot of money. I didn't need a whole lot. So if you can maximize your 401k, I think the contribution limit for 2025 is $23,500. If you're 50 or older, you can have a catch-up contribution, which lets you put an extra $7,500, I believe. So if you're that age, something to think about, but you'd have to at least get to your maximum contribution, which can be challenging sometimes. Let me see here. Oh, my other thing is to make sure when you're investing in your 401k that your money is being invested. Sometimes you can put it in and it just sits there. So you need to go into whatever app you have or webpage for your employer and make sure money's going where you want it to go. Sometimes they have a target date range. Sometimes they give you an S&P, a percentage you can put in, various allocations. You can probably talk to maybe a financial advisor through your job. I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice, but I do recommend you put in money. Let me see here. So let's talk about, what else do we have here? These are the contribution limits. And yeah, we talked about that. Let's talk about a Roth 401k. So Roth is, or you can also have a Roth IRA, individual retirement account, and that's just after-tax money. So what does that mean? So when you get your paycheck, it goes into your bank account. That money's already been taxed for most of us if you have a traditional job, and you're not having to pay taxes on your own. If you're self-employed, that might be different. But if you have a traditional job, W-2 job, you're getting your money, it's after tax. That money you get, you can put into a Roth IRA up to $7,000 in the year 2025. And if you're 50 or older, you can put an extra $1,000, so that's $8,000. And the benefit to a Roth IRA is that it grows tax-free. So you've already been taxed on the money. When you invest it, it can grow and compound, and that money can be distributed after the age 59 and a half, free and clear. It's already been taxed. So that's one of the better investment vessels that is available to you. But it's harder to have that grow because the money's after tax, and usually by the time you get your money, you're spending it. So it's a little more challenging to invest into a Roth. Let's talk about an after-tax brokerage account. Do I have that here? Oh, I also have a simple IRA here. So this is for either self-employed workers or 1099 workers. Basically, if you do work on the side and you get paid from some entity and they don't tax the money, you have to pay taxes later. You still have options to invest that money. So this is called a self-directed 401k. I'll put the link to this in the show notes too, so that way you can invest your money even though you might not have access to a traditional 401k. So the other option I was talking about was a traditional after-tax brokerage account. And that's basically just a simple investment account that allows you to invest after-tax money, after-tax dollars, and you can have access to it anytime. Ideally, you'd let it sit there for at least 1 year, if not longer, because they have short-term capital gains tax and long-term capital gains tax. What does that mean? Well, anytime you make money, you're going to get taxed, basically, unless it's the Roth, but that's already been taxed when you put it in. So when you have short-term capital gains, if I put in $100 in some stock and it grows to $200 and I take it out the next day or a week later, I get taxed at short-term capital gains. I don't have the chart. I didn't bring that up, but it's a higher rate. If I wait for a year to go by and take that money out, then I get long-term capital gains. And typically, they are better than your W-2 tax rates. So don't let the names capital gains scare you, because they're just terms that have been used for these. But it's another tool that we can use to help grow our wealth, and it's a good way. I would use that for trying to maybe buy a house, maybe if you have kids that you want to try and grow their wealth for education, even though there's other ways to do that. There's 529s, there's education savings accounts. But if you don't think or want your kid to go to school, these are another option. But it's a good way to have an emergency account, to have some money growing, ideally at 8 to 10% rate, and you have access to it relatively quickly, and it'll grow and grow and grow. So just keep contributing to it. So let me see here. So something I have here. So with 401k, you're kind of limited to what you can invest in. It's typically whatever your employer offers, and it's not going to be a whole lot of individual stocks, if anything at all. Maybe just your company stocks. If you have a Roth IRA, depending on if it's provided by employer, it might be the same as your 401k. If you have an individual IRA, you might have more options. Or your after-tax brokerage account, you have more options. You can invest in individual companies or ETFs, exchange-traded funds, and that way you can pick where you want your money to go. And you can be a little more aggressive, which means risky, and that money can invest and go higher. But on the flip side, there's also a higher risk of declines, which could be losses. So you have to know your risk tolerance. You can start slow and start seeing how your money goes, and then decide for yourself what you're comfortable with. So what can you do? First, you need to start with your company matches. I think you need to see what's available to you through your company, and at the minimum, get those matches. If you can afford to, try to go higher and maximize your 401k to max it out, at least in the short term. As you get a little older with more responsibilities, you can definitely back that out, as long as you still get the company match. That would be the minimum, in my opinion, to back out your 401k or any matches that you get. You want to at least get the company match. Also, you should grow your network. Talking to people from, talking to people from work, talking to people that invest, watching this channel, looking at other YouTubes or podcasts, learning about financial independence and investing is a great way to educate yourself and continue to grow your wealth. So that's it for now. Thank you for tuning in. I hope to have another follow-up episode soon. I'm trying to get these out to you quicker and have a little longer format, so that way we can continue the dialogue. Well, it's not really a dialogue. It's more my talking to you and help get you guys to invest and educate yourselves and get a fire under you guys. I think it took me a long time to realize what I was doing. Part of my story was talking to coworkers and having them ask me, what am I investing in? And I said, I don't know, what should I invest in? And, they kind of gave me some ideas, and I started off not knowing what I was doing, and it was great for me. I'm glad I did it. And if you guys aren't investing in just your 401k, I recommend you expand and try and grow your wealth in other ways. So hopefully this will help inspire you to do a little bit more research. I don't have all the answers, but I want you to know that there's more out there, and this is how we can get our community going. Thank you very much for tuning in. This is David Guerrero.